Earlier this week, Liberal leader Mark Carney introduced what the Liberals and the Liberal media called the most ambitious housing plan in Canada since the Second World War.
We used to build things in this country. After the Second World War, Canada faced a housing crisis. The government built prefabricated homes that were easy to assemble and inexpensive. And those homes are still here 80 years later. Now we're in another housing crisis. And it's time your government got back into the business of building affordable homes. We will build new homes for Canadians at a pace not seen since the Second World War. We'll build a Canada you can afford.
Ambitious. That's one way of putting it. Many conservatives rightly criticize this program as being a Soviet-style system or flat-out communism. That is, after all, what you call a system where the government owns the means of production. So rather than Canadian businesses, entrepreneurs, and home builders managing and building these new homes, Carney's plan has government bureaucrats doing it. Here is what Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre had to say about it.
He wants to put the Liberal policies on steroids. His housing plan, I don't know if you saw this earlier this week, he wants to create a government-run construction company that is going to make prefab tiny homes with no parking spots. This is his idea for housing. This is even more radical than the stuff that came from Stephen Guilbeault and Justin Trudeau over the last 10 years. This is not a serious plan to protect our economy and break our dependence.
Tiny homes, no parking spaces. Does that sound appealing to you? But these criticisms miss a deeper, far more concerning problem. Yes, Carney's announcement seems like another silly leftist scheme, a classic top-down, rule-by-experts, big government solution. But when we dig into the details, this isn't just another leftist gimmick. Juno News has found a worrying connection. Mark Carney could personally make millions or even billions of dollars from this housing scheme. Let's dig into the details of the housing plan. Here it is on the Liberal Party's website. So this is what they want to do. They want to build 500,000 new housing units per year. They want to create a new government agency called Build Canada Homes, or BCH, which will be a public-private partnership. Now, that's an important detail. They want to act as a developer to build affordable housing at scale, including on public lands. They want to provide over $25 billion in financing to build prefabricated homes in Canada. They want to provide another $10 billion in low-cost financing and capital to affordable home builders. So government bureaucrats will manage the project, but private interests will build it. The scheme will give $25 billion in loans, another $10 billion in more low-interest loans and capital, the distribution of which is not stated, and finally $1 billion in equity financing, which basically just means free handouts to developers. And here is where we get to the most alarming part. When we look at the full report again on the Liberal Party website, it's very clear from this document that Mark Carney's plan is to build rental units. Now let's go to the details from the longer report. I'll read here. It says, we will reintroduce a tax incentive which, when originally introduced in the 1970s, spurred tens of thousands of rental housing across the country. Known as the Multiple Unit Rental Building Cost Allowance, this policy helped produce nearly 200,000 units in 7 years, between 1974 and 1981. It goes on to say, we will facilitate the conversion of existing structures into affordable housing units by reducing the tax liability for private owners of multi-purpose rental when they sell their building to a nonprofit operator, land trust, or nonprofit acquisition fund, so long as the proceeds are reinvested in building new purpose-built rental housing units. The background document mentions the word rental 4 times, but does not once state the word home ownership. Toronto housing expert Ron Butler pointed out this disturbing detail on social media. Here's what he wrote on X. Carney's housing plan. This stuff is totally nuts. Important fact, the word home ownership appears nowhere. Yep, a housing plan without anyone buying homes. I have read every word of the explainer on the website. Well, so did I. The whole document does not say home ownership at all, but it does say rental several times. So the goal of Carney's housing scheme is not for Canadians to own homes. The plan is to build homes for Canadians to rent. Remember the World Economic Fund goal for the future? Own nothing and be happy? Perhaps that is Mark Carney's goal for Canada. We own nothing. He and his wealthy friends control everything. So according to Mark Carney's plan, who's going to own these homes? Who will our new landlord be? Could it be Mark Carney's former company, Brookfield Asset Management, the one he moved its headquarters from Toronto to New York City to appease Donald Trump? Well, Brookfield does have a property leasing division that operates in Canada. If you go onto Brookfield's own website, they describe this entire division of their company. Here, I'll read from their website. Brookfield Properties, which is a subsidiary of Brookfield Property Partners, itself under Brookfield Asset Management, manages a diverse portfolio that includes office, rental, logistics, hospitality, and multifamily residential properties. Their multifamily residential focus involves owning, developing, and leasing apartment buildings, condominiums, and similar units, primarily in high-demand urban markets across North America. They manage over 42,000 multifamily units worldwide, with over 9,000 more units in development. So unlike Brookfield Residential, which builds and sells homes, Brookfield Property retains and manages properties for rental income. According to their website, in Canada, Brookfield Properties operates multifamily rentals in cities like Toronto and Vancouver. In the U.S., Brookfield Properties manages over 100 residential communities across 21 states. Brookfield Residential is a North American land developer and home builder headquartered in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and is a subsidiary of Brookfield Asset Management. Their core business is land development and home building, where they design, construct, and sell single-family homes, townhomes, and multifamily units like condos and apartments to buyers or investors. As of their 2023 annual report, Brookfield Residential reported controlling approximately 74,000 single-family units across the U.S. and Canada, with total assets valued at $5.2 billion. Earlier this year, Brookfield acquired 2,165 apartments in San Francisco, making it the city's largest landlord. So is that their plan for Canadian cities too, to become our largest landlord? So it isn't a stretch to assume that they could be awarded part or all of this new housing deal. Here is how NDP leader Jagmeet Singh described what Brookfield does.
You had a lot to say about Mark Carney and a lot about what he's done to cash in on this crisis, you've said. What evidence do you have that Mark Carney has done anything unethical to take advantage of this crisis?
Well, the fact that he headed up Brookfield, and Brookfield is a large corporate landlord in Canada that engaged in rent eviction. At a time when Canadians could not find affordable homes, he saw a way to make more profit for his company. And now I don't fault him for making profit for his company. I fault him for proposing that somehow the person that fed the housing crisis, that rent evicted people, that jacked up the price of homes that were affordable, that bought up affordable homes, then turned them into unaffordable places, that somehow that guy could be trusted to fix the housing crisis. He cannot be trusted.
He calls it rent eviction. So Brookfield buys up affordable units, then renovates them to make them luxury units. They then sell those units for a big profit, further inflating the housing market and locking out young families, or they simply turn them into rental units so that Brookfield can charge exorbitant rents and get perpetual return on investment.
What he's going to do is what he's done his entire career, which is make more money for the super rich. And it's going to hurt you and your family. That's what people need to know. And I'm going to point that out every time I get.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but Jagmeet Singh is right. Mark Carney is just doing what he's always done, making more money for the super rich. So is the plan for Brookfield to get the contract to build and own these homes with subsidies to the tune of $36 billion from Canadian taxpayers? How much of a return on investment would that give to Mark Carney personally? And how much would it give to his wealthy banking buddies? Why isn't the legacy media asking these important questions or connecting these dots? Well, herein lies the problem with Mark Carney. Usually in a parliamentary democracy, citizens have multiple opportunities to get to know a candidate, to vet their record, and to scrutinize their character. In Canada, typically this is done multiple times before someone would ever become prime minister. First, at a local level by local party members when someone runs for a nomination, then by the general public when someone runs to become a member of parliament, And then again when that person runs to become party leader, typically after years of service and representing constituents as an MP. But Mark Carney skipped all those steps. Rather than serving as an elected official in Canada, he was appointed a central banker abroad. He worked for the World Economic Forum, the United Nations, Goldman Sachs, and Brookfield, serving international interests and globalist financiers. Carney was selected in a backroom deal. Liberal officials disqualified any candidate who stood in his way. We were told that there were more than 400,000 qualified Liberal voters, but inexplicably, only 150,000 votes were counted. Typically, this vetting process would also uncover a person's personal assets and their financial interests. Just how rich is Mark Carney? How did he make his money? And where is his money invested? How many shares does he own in Brookfield? And how much does he stand to make should Brookfield be given this housing deal? And it's not just me asking these questions. Here's Robert Fife.
He still hasn't told us what he's going to do, and we've been trying to get this information, what you're going to do about putting your conflict of interest disclosures to the public. They have ducked that over and over again. And there's a reason for this, is that it takes 60 days to declare, once you become prime minister, 60 days to declare your conflict and 120 days to declare it to the public. If he abides by that, then the election will be over before we even know what his financial interests are. So he's been ducking us a lot. He'll take 2 questions, maybe 3, and then they run away from us.
We don't know, and perhaps we'll never know. So is Mark Carney's plan to push a globalist agenda onto Canada, capping our energy, forcing a green revolution, further impoverishing Canadians, making it so that we own nothing, while personally making millions or even billions of dollars through his own Brookfield assets? These are important questions, and Canadians deserve to have the answers. We deserve the truth. For Juno News, I'm Candice Malcolm. Thank you, and God bless.